Let's dive right into this explainer. Today, we're taking a deep, investigative look into what might just be the ultimate blind spot of highly successful executives. It's this fascinating phenomenon that quietly threatens the future of massive corporations, vast political movements, and sprawling institutions alike. We revere visionary leaders who build empires, right? Yet, so many of these exact same leaders commit a fatal organizational flaw. They completely fail to plan for the day they're no longer in the room.
The function of leadership is to produce more leaders, not more followers. That insight from Ralph Nader really serves as the philosophical core of our exploration today. It sets a standard that honestly sounds incredibly straightforward, yet it's a standard that some of the absolute brightest minds in history have completely failed to meet.
So, here is the crucial question we have to ask ourselves. If great leaders are inherently visionary, if they can spot market trends decades in advance and navigate through impossible adversity, why do they so often leave their organizations entirely blind when they finally depart?
Section 1. Are true leaders born? To solve this mystery, we first need to take a step back and examine the very roots of how leaders are formed. We really have to navigate that age-old debate of nature versus nurture. Where do these capabilities actually come from? Well, when we categorize the origins of leadership, 4 distinct types emerge. First, we have born leaders. These individuals just naturally emerge when the stakes are highest, often stepping up during intense crises. We're talking about historical giants: Washington, Gandhi, Lincoln. Next, you have the self-made leaders. These are figures driven by relentless innovation and raw business acumen. Think of visionaries like Henry Ford or Dhirubhai Ambani. Then we transition to produced leaders. Now, this is where most modern organizations live. These leaders are meticulously mentored, nurtured, and trained over decades to eventually occupy the corporate C-suite. And finally, the incompetent. Leaders driven not by merit, but perhaps by vain ambition, or maybe they're just placed in power simply due to a sheer lack of other alternatives.
Now, no matter which category a leader falls into, there is a stark, undeniable warning we have to acknowledge. Without the conscious, dedicated effort to nurture future leaders, an organization's future is in grave danger. It literally does not matter how robust the balance sheet looks today. Without a pipeline of talent, the foundation is already crumbling.
Section 2. The Immortality Syndrome.
So if the danger is so obvious, why does it happen? Uncovering the pathology of this neglect reveals some genuinely fascinating hidden barriers. Often, the sheer busyness of day-to-day survival just overwhelms any long-term planning. But deeper than that is a psychological barrier experts call the immortality syndrome. It's a literal denial of retirement. It's an unspoken, deep-seated belief within the leader that they are uniquely irreplaceable. Add to this the toxic influence of nepotism, pushing incapable favorites or family members into roles they just haven't earned. And finally, we have to acknowledge a very mundane truth. Succession planning is incredibly difficult. It demands hard work that simply doesn't yield immediate, visible rewards.
Section 3. Corporate and political crises.
These psychological flaws aren't just academic theories. When left unchecked, they manifest as massive real-world fallout. Looking objectively at the political arena, we see exactly how leadership vacuums create profound instability. For example, within the Indian National Congress, the transition from Indira Gandhi, an undeniably powerful leader, to Rajiv Gandhi suffered largely because it completely lacked the runway of long-term planning time. Similarly, analyzing the regional AIADMK party, analysts note that the complex play of big money combined with entrenched extended family networks creates massive structural blockades to organic leadership development. The systemic fix required here isn't just better mentoring. Experts suggest it actually requires electoral funding reform to clear the path so that merit can rise above a protective inner circle.
But let's be clear, this is by no means just a political problem. Consider the staggering scale of the Tata Group. We're talking about 29 publicly listed companies with over 800,000 employees globally. When a leadership vacuum suddenly opened up there, it required their former leader, Ratan Tata, to literally step back in and temporarily intervene to stabilize the empire. We see the exact same vulnerability at Infosys, a digital consulting giant spanning over 50 countries with 290,000 employees. When their top seat emptied, they too required their co-founder, N.R. Narayana Murthy, to step back into the fray. This perfectly illustrates that no matter how immensely successful an organization is, a missing succession plan leaves the door wide open to sudden, terrifying vulnerability.
Ultimately, the Tata Group did find their long-term stability.
But notice where it came from. Their solution was Mr. N. Chandrasekaran, later honored with the Padma Bhushan. He didn't just drop from the sky, he was pulled from within their own broader ecosystem, specifically from TCS. It absolutely proves the immense value of having top-tier talent already cultivated within your organizational orbit.
Now, when we pivot to public sector undertakings, or PSUs, the investigation uncovers a profoundly broken bureaucratic system. The systemic flaws here are glaring. First, CEO tenures are often extremely short, which completely paralyzes the ability to implement any meaningful long-term strategy. Furthermore, the selection process is handed over to an outside board, the PESB. This utterly excludes the current CEO from having a hand in choosing their successor, which breaks the natural chain of mentorship. Meanwhile, HR departments at lower levels obsessively focus on measurable seniority, just years of service, rather than identifying actual leadership potential. It's a perfect storm that actively prevents the cultivation of true leaders.
Section 4, the gold standard.
So, what does it look like when someone actually gets it right? 21. That is the number of years Jack Welch spent at the helm of GE. For over 2 decades, he completely transformed the organization, earning the title of Fortune's Manager of the Century.
But what's genuinely surprising is where his foundational leadership philosophy actually began. It started in a literal childhood gravel pit in Salem, Massachusetts, a makeshift baseball field where Welch learned his aggressive, no-nonsense style of standing his ground. When he took over GE in 1981, he actually built the company's own version of that pit. He created a massive lecture hall with a pitched floor in Crotonville, New York. He made it the beating heart of the company, holding court to vigorously foster a brand new generation of managers.
And the output of that corporate pit was absolutely staggering. Welch didn't just build products, he built a CEO factory. This deep management bench included executives who went on to run other massive global corporations. We're talking about executives like Robert Nardelli of Home Depot and Chrysler, David Calhoun and James McNerney, both leading Boeing, David Coate at Honeywell. Welch proved, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that a leader's ultimate economic impact, their true legacy, is calculated by the future executives they build.
As Michael Usum so beautifully summarizes, leadership for the long run calls for thinking about and planning for what needs to be done before being forced to do something. That is the essential thesis here, proactive vision, not reactive scrambling. We see this exact same proactive vision in modern titans as well. When Jeff Bezos passed the reins of Amazon to Andy Jassy, it followed a highly calculated concrete blueprint. The experts boil this blueprint down to 2 absolutely crucial steps. First, begin grooming your successors at least 5 years before you actually want to leave. And second, continually delegate more and more heavy responsibilities to physically ease the organization into the transition.
Section 5. Passing the baton.
Understanding the mechanics of leadership is one thing, but the true test is the handoff. This really brings our overarching narrative full circle. John C. Maxwell framed it perfectly when he said, "If you run well but are unable to pass the baton to another runner, you lose the race." It doesn't matter how fast your lap was. It doesn't matter how many records you broke while you held the baton. If the handoff is dropped, the entire organization fails. So, as we wrap up this explainer today, I want to leave you with a provocative question to really consider for your own professional journey. What will be your ultimate legacy? Will it merely be the individual success you achieve today? Or will it be the capable, visionary leaders you leave behind tomorrow?
Detailed article on this topic and articles and videos on other thought-provoking topics are available on the Inforjunction WordPress blog and YouTube channel.